What is up, everybody? Welcome back to MLB Swing for the Fences here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. It is Wednesday, May 7th. We got a 7-game MLB slate on tap, as always on Wednesday afternoon, joined by Statsational. John, how you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Doing well, man. Looking forward to getting into it. Let's get some winners.
Yeah, I was happy for some early slate baseball and a full day of baseball after watching the my Timberwolves last night in I think the most pathetic offensive performance I've ever seen out of a team that I'm cheering for. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that game if you're watching the NBA playoffs, but just absolutely brutal. Did you get a chance to see it?
I didn't get a chance to watch it. I actually I was out last night and missed it, but. Yeah, how bad was it? Was the shooting? I mean, how bad were the numbers as far as score? You can't get a gauge in the playoffs. Scoring is always down.
So they got a tiny bit better in the second half, but I think I saw. Yeah, I mean, they started 0 for 14 from three. I think they ended up shooting 14% from 3-point land. I think the second most turnovers they've had all season. The worst 3-point shooting. And I think the fourth most offensive rebounds they've given up. So just a truly, truly horrific performance from the Wolves. And as a Minnesota sports fan, I've grown accustomed to it. But every year the Wolves suck me back in for the playoffs, only to bend me over once again and send me packing early. So we'll see. Steph Curry going to be out a few games. I do think the Wolves will rebound, but definitely feeling the pain from that one. Go ahead.
I think I saw a Big T tweet this morning or expo something about if your entire team makes less threes than Draymond Green, you're in trouble. So I assume that's what happened last night.
Yeah, at one point in the first half, the Wolves were 0 for 13 from 3, and Draymond Green was 4 or 5. So that about sums up the game for you. It was a painful one to watch. Hopefully they can rebound, at least for my sake. But we're on to baseball, and we do have 7 games to talk about. We've got the normal lock time coming up here in a couple of hours. We'll, of course, go game by game following the DraftKings order of games, as we always do. We'll do the Dong Draft, talk pitchers, stacks, all that good stuff throughout the course of the show. Appreciate all you guys being here. Hit the like button while you're here and have a chance before we dive into these games. We do start out in Yankee Stadium in New York, Padres and Yankees. Should be a fun one here. 2 good pitchers going at it. Dylan Cease for the Padres. Very talented guy, a volatile guy, I would say, but a talented one nonetheless, versus Max Fried, who's kind of the opposite. Not quite the same strikeout rates as a guy like Cease brings to the table, but more consistency out of Fried for sure, who's been really, really good to start the year. First start of the year, he was not great, but other than that, he's been pretty much lights out. Max Fried in his first year with the Yankees. Tough matchup for him here, I think. Low strikeout rates mostly in the Padres lineup, and of course, pretty good hitting conditions here in Yankee Stadium. One of the better that we've seen all year in what is a hitter's park in general. Going to be 65, 70 degrees, some humidity, and some winds blowing out to center field. So going to play especially home run friendly tonight. 2 good pitchers. So no guarantee, but the ball should be flying pretty well in Yankee Stadium. As always, when you get 2 good lineups and 2 good pitchers in a good hitting environment, I think there's a lot of different ways you could play this one. I do think both stacks are at least in consideration as contrarian stacks. I personally like the Yankees stack quite a bit better, but I could see the case for the Padres, and I think you could make the case for these pitchers as well. Again, not the direction I'm going to go on my 5 teams tonight, but I do think the upside is there, at least for Cease, and then, Fried probably going to give you 15, 20 plus fantasy points too. So I could see the case being made for a Max Fried roster, but I'll throw it over to you, Stats. What do you see here? Padres and Yankees in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no need for me to be here. I think you actually you pretty much touched on everything. I want
next game. I'll throw it right to you before I talk about everything.
No. It's perfectly fine. I'll add to it, but I think going in, I thought this was the most interesting game for a lot of the reasons that you actually you stated, because we got a couple of pretty good pitchers. You got Cease, like you said, high upside. I've got him rated really poorly though, as far as this slate goes. So I've got him down at he's 11th with Fried as my third best pitcher, and really the top three are all kind of close. And then there's a little bit of a drop off from there. So the thing with Cease, like you said, he's got the upside. So this is the second best pitcher on the slate as far as K per inning number, but we don't really expect him to go all that deep into the game. So Cease's his total outs in the prop market is only 15.5 with a 5.5 strikeout. Both of those are juiced to the over, but not heavily juiced. So we're not looking for Cease really to go deep in the game. But with that said, I do think you want to sprinkle a little bit of Cease into your builds here, especially if you're playing 150, just because of that upside. But I'm not going to get too crazy there. I really like the Yankee bats. I think we're going to get a suppression in ownership with a Colorado game on the slate. The Yankees, like you said, this is a good hitting environment against a pitcher, at least in name, in Cease, who does garner some respect. I think we may be able to get some good leverage here on the Yankee bats. And when I ran the Boom Report earlier, and I'm going to update it, we didn't get that Detroit lineup in yet. So as we get the late lineups in, we'll get some updates on there. And as the betting markets move, that's going to change the Boom Report as well. But as of right now, like the Yankees are projecting out as the best stack on the entire slate, which I love that. I love being able to get away maybe from the Colorado game and finding a place to go with obviously some very highly potent Yankee lineup. Saw what they could do. They had a pretty nice night yesterday, and no reason that we can't get sneaky here, I think. And outside of Judge, I think Wells is getting projected for a decent ownership, but outside of that, I think we could get some pretty low ownership on a fairly short slate. Yeah, so I really like the Yankee bats here more than I like San Diego.
Yeah, it seems like when you get pitchers like Fried and Cease, a lot of people kind of just move on to the next one. They see two good pitchers on the mound. They don't want to go against that. They want to, go against lesser pitchers, frankly. And I get it. But Cease, I mean, when you look at the projections, it's kind of a median projection, right? So Cease's risk of a blow up is kind of baked into the median projected score. But we talk about the tails on this show. I think they're high on both sides for Cease, who he is one of those pitchers who's capable. You wouldn't be shocked if he goes out and strikes out the side on 13 pitches to start the game, something like that. He has that kind of stuff.
You wouldn't be shocked if he walks the bases loaded either.
Exactly.
Right? So that's the problem.
Exactly. So, I think Cease is, like you said, he's not high for me. I do think he's an okay play at 8K, but neither of us are playing Cease, so we don't need to dwell on that. But I'm with you on the Yankees. They're growing on me. If we go over to your Boom Report, which we should go more in depth with that. I know a lot of people watching are members at RPS, but a lot of people, just enjoying the show and are not members too. The Boom Report just started this year, and I think you and Captain kind of came up with it together. And it's certainly been, among the most popular stuff we have over at Run Pure Sports. It's been a great way for me and for everybody else to find high upside bats or stacks or low owned stacks to get into your lineups. I saw the thread you had on it on X, I think yesterday or maybe today. Mm-hmm. Stats, the days run together for me. But why don't you talk a little bit about what the Boom Report is, what goes into creating these metrics for these players, and maybe how to use it for people that aren't familiar, or even people that are and are watching the show but maybe don't utilize it to its fullest extent. I'll kind of elaborate on how I use it too, but talk a little bit about the Boom Report. It is obviously kind of your baby over there.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, Captain really was the inspiration. He was asking me to try to come up with something where we can look for players that are good boom bust type of players, right? So this is the type of player that we really want in GPPs. And so we came up with this report, and it's really looking at home runs, the really big scoring categories for offense, the home runs, stolen bases, RBIs, runs, looking in the betting markets, looking at projections, and then translating that into an upside. And it's taking each player and it's rating them against the rest of the field. So that's why you'll always see the numbers kind of range somewhere in the low 80s to like, sometimes they get down there pretty low as far as the boom score. So the higher the score, the better. It also takes the salary into account. So if you've got a player at 2,500, they don't need as strong a projection as, let's say, an Aaron Judge at the 6,500 mark, right? So it's taking everything into account as far as boom. We call it the boom rating, but it's really a ceiling rating. It's looking at potential players that can blow up, and of course, home runs are going to weigh heavily there, and followed by stolen bases. So what a lot of people have been doing, and I've been getting, it's of all the things I've done, this has probably gotten the most attention because people are winning with it. So when you win with it, of course, everyone likes it. I've been really trying to I've tried to put it out as much as possible. But like today, we had an early slate. Typically, I'll only get it out for the main slate, but I did get one out for the early slate today. So as long as I'm in front of the computer, I'm happy to do it for everybody. But I think what it does for a lot of people is it allows you to really quickly analyze the entire market at least from the hitters standpoint. And if you've only got 20, 30 minutes to really focus on your DFS baseball and how many people outside of us who have all that much more than that, it's a real nice way to be able to find the stacks that you like, the secondary stacks, and finding individual players that you may want to fit into a lineup that have high potential. So I like it a lot. I use it firstly to identify my stacks, and then those secondaries and single lineups. So I don't know how you're using it, but that's a lot of the feedback I'm getting is positive, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's been really, really helpful. A couple ways that I use it. Once in a while, I do kind of morning research and kind of come up with what I think I'm going to be at when the slate locks, and then see where the lineups are and what comes out, projections, boom report. But one thing that occasionally happens is there's just a position, right, that I just can't find anybody that I really want to play. Maybe it doesn't fit with the stack, so I go over to the boom report, and usually, right, I have a pretty good guess on who's going to be on top of most of the positions or the stacks. But occasionally, there's a name that pops up that I wouldn't necessarily expect to be there, right? And so the boom report is, it's numbers, stats driven. You'd be in Statsational over there, and it can find players who are flying under the radar. And I like to take it even a step further and combine the boom number with ownership numbers. And so, the highest boom number with the lowest ownership is, to me, the strongest GPP plays on the slate when it comes to hitting. Feel confident in my pitching picks most of the time. So it's certainly been beneficial in that way. I also like, there's occasionally stats like sometimes, two teammates have a really high boom rating and then nobody else, right, has anything. To me, those are like the very, very best mini stacks. You just cut it off at 2 or 3 or whatever it is. Oftentimes you get them lower owned because the stack itself isn't all that appealing. You got a little bit of a situation like that tonight would be like Cedric Mullins and Gunnar Henderson, right? Kind of a lap in the field, hitting 1-2 atop that Orioles lineup. Maybe you don't need to take it any further than that with the Orioles. You go somewhere else, play a 5-2-1, something like that. So a lot of different ways to utilize it. I know RPS members are putting it to good use, getting to the top of the leaderboards. We'll continue to do so. But just wanted to talk about it briefly because we do reference it a lot during the show, I know, and members certainly utilizing it as well. So that's the boom report. We'll continue to talk about it, utilize it, and hopefully keep using it to get to the top of the standings. Back to this game real quick. I don't think I talked too much about it, but yeah, the Yankees, Aaron Judge is typically, I talk about this all the time. It almost doesn't matter who he faces. His projections are just nuts. And when you watch him hit, like it doesn't seem like he cares. He looks comfortable against every single type of pitcher, breaking balls, velocity, left-handed, right-handed. And he does, even in like not a perfectly ideal matchup against Dylan Cease, he is well above the field of anyone else in the Boom Report. And that also even incorporates salary, right, as a part of the equation. And even though Judge is the most expensive pitcher on the board, or hitter on the board rather, he does rate number one on the Boom Report. He's a priority play for me on essentially every slate, including tonight with some wind blowing out. I bet he does some more damage. But Ben Rice also fairly high up there. And then Austin Wells, like you mentioned, pretty high on the Boom Report, especially for a catcher, which is kind of a tough position tonight. So that's San Diego and the Yankees. Any Padres stacks for you, Stats? I missed it if you talked about them.
No, I mean, I don't really love the Padres side of this game, but this actually would fall. The Padres would fall into that secondary stack type of field. They do quite a bit, but it's expensive. Tatis $6K now, which is he's getting up there. But Machado at 4,900 rates out really well. In that ballpark, like you said, when it's good hitting weather and that ball, but you saw the Judge home run yesterday was ridiculous. The park to right field's a joke, but hey, we'll take it if we could get some of these guys low owned in Yankee Stadium on a short slate. The Yankees, to me, I know we're talking about San Diego, but the Yankees to me really stand out as a pretty good play as far as looking at where the ownership's going to be and what the potential is for that lineup tonight. Yeah,
Cease has been shaky this year. He had the one awful start, but even beyond that, he hasn't been all that great his last few. So, in on the Yankees with you. Certainly one of my top stacks of the slate. Let's get to the next game on the slate. It is the Philadelphia Phillies, Tampa Bay Rays. This one in Yankee Stadium South, George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. Going to be typical Tampa weather, low to mid 80s. Actually pretty high humidity and some decent light winds blowing out to center field for this one. Two talented arms going here. Shane Baz for the Rays. He's been absolutely all over the place, had one of the better outings of the entire year against the Red Sox a few starts ago. But two of his last three have been into the negatives. Both of those did come in this park, which is a tough place to pitch. So Shane Baz, he's a hard one to get my head around on where his real talent level is. But, given the blow-up starts that he's shown, he certainly can't just shy away from playing against Shane Baz, even if there is a risk that the good version shows up and shuts down your bats. But I think it's pretty obvious with the Phillies here. You can certainly reference the Boom Report, but no surprise. Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber up there very high. Good park to hit out, home runs to right field. Those guys swinging from the left side. Those would be the two main guys I would target. You could play the full stack here. Again, all the lefties, Stott, Kepler, I think are good plays, and the full Philly stack absolutely in play against Shane Baz. And then Christopher Sanchez going for the Phillies. Had that injury scare 2 starts ago against the Mets, was removed after 2 innings. Missed one start or had a start, I think just pushed back. It was pretty good against the Nationals, 87 pitches, 6 Ks, 2 earned runs over 5 innings. Did get the win in that start as well. But yeah, I still am a believer in Sanchez. He's been good this season. I still think the best is yet to come for Sanchez. We saw Wheeler dominate this lineup yesterday. I think Sanchez, I'm not going to call for that big of an outing, but I do like his chances here. There are some dangerous right-handed bats at the top of this lineup, Diaz, Morel, Caminero, but it gets pretty rough after that. And Sanchez's arguably his best pitch is a changeup, which would work well against those right-handed hitters, if he's able to control it, which, that pitch does seem to come and go a little bit for him sometimes. So I'm in on Sanchez here, especially at 7,500. I think he is a much more talented pitcher than that price tag would suggest. And I think the matchup here is, neutral. I would say an overall kind of neutral matchup for Sanchez here. So I'm in on Sanchez. I don't think I'm playing Shane Baz here. Probably going to more Phillies bats. What are you doing stats with Phillies and Rays?
Yeah, so I love Sanchez at the 7,500 today. You hate being in that ballpark, but that price it's going to be too tough to pass up. I got him as my second best pitcher for the slate with the price included in there. So I will have quite a bit and maybe even over the market on Sanchez. We'll see where he comes in at, but I think we're projecting it somewhere around 30%. I might get above that. Considering, and I think he's going to maybe even come in higher just because of the expensive bats, especially with a Colorado game out there. And we're going to have some expensive bats in that lineup. People are going to be playing Sanchez. The Sanchez Detroit, combo is going to be pretty popular, I would think, tonight, because you can get him in there. So I do like Sanchez quite a bit. Like I said, I'll probably get over on the market. I think I like Baz maybe a little bit more than you do.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we've got at 11, 12%, what Sabres looking at. I'm actually going to get a little above that, I think, as well. Nothing crazy, maybe in the high teens on Baz. I've got Baz as my fifth best option on the slate. Don't love the price tag of 8,800. I think we could do a little bit better with some other options out on the slate, but I'll have a bit of Baz. And like you said, I think, pretty good arm with some upside. We don't have a ton on the Boom Report as far as Philly. Philly has the only elite options, like you said. I think you mentioned it with Schwarber and Harper. We've got a lot of high boom options. That's like the second tier on that Boom Report. The only options that you get here, like I said, none of the Tampa bats reach that elite level, but Morel, who you mentioned, Caballero, I believe you mentioned, and then Jansen, who we did not mention, at the 2,900 price tag, does fit at least as a high boom rating. So if you do want to maybe get a little bit, play a little bit of a leverage play with that ballpark, I can attest that it is nice and warm outside right now. The ball will fly out there, so it's never you never feel all that safe with the pitcher. So if you do want to kind of play against Sanchez and take some of the Tampa bats, those would be the ones I take, and especially Jansen, I think, at the 2,900. If you're apt to kind of take the Rays side of this game, I think that's a pretty good option at that price.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me the Rays were going to get to Sanchez, I would certainly think it would be those top four bats: Diaz, Morel, Caminero, Jansen, all swinging from the right side. So if you do want to go against, get some leverage against what we think will be a very chalky pitcher in Christopher Sanchez, he should be. I'm sure he will be. I would go to those four. And yeah, the cheap guy, Danny Jansen, makes a lot of sense. Caminero's got power. Morel and Diaz as well. So I'm not going to go to those guys, but if I was going to play the Rays, it would absolutely be the top of that lineup. Bottom of this lineup, I mean, Walls, Simpson, lefty, low. Really no interest at all in those guys. But I do think the top of the lineup for the Rays is at least viable. And yeah, I mean, especially Schwarber. Just I think he's just an elite play. Looked at just so much power. And he seems like he knows what he's doing in that park as well. Hit a home run yesterday. So that's the Rays and the Phillies. Really pretty fun games overall for a shorter slate, especially those first two that we'll talk about. Let's get to the next one. We go to Atlanta for the Reds and the Braves. Chris Sale coming off pretty strong outing yesterday. And I guess AJ Smith-Shawver before him. So they've kind of shut down this Reds team for the most part. It'll be Grant Holmes' turn to give it a try. I've got significantly less faith in Grant Holmes getting the job done. I was on both Shawver and Sale. And I do think for his price tag, Grant Holmes, 7,400 is a reasonable play. I've got him a ways behind Christopher Sanchez at the same price point. But it is a shorter slate. Nothing preventing anyone from playing both. I'm just not a believer in Grant Holmes. I do think he projects okay here. I get why people would play him. I'm going to go elsewhere. Personally, I would mix him in there if I was playing, 150 or whatever. And then Hunter Green going for the Reds. We've been on this guy all year long. He has been fantastic outside of the one hiccup in Baltimore. Man, beyond that, he's had, I think he's been above 20 fantasy points in all of his other starts and above 30 in 3 of them, including 37 DraftKings points last time out, 12 strikeouts against the Nationals. He gets, I guess, a relatively difficult matchup here against the Braves, but not one that I'm running away from. And Green has just been, he's just been incredible. 100-mile-per-hour fastballs deep into the game. And the big thing he's changed this year's stats, thing that has really led to his big breakout season so far, is the strike throwing. He's finally kind of pounding the zone. He was a pitcher who fell behind a lot of hitters in the past, would be forced to come in, with 3-0, 3-1 fastballs that would get hit for home runs. This year, he's been ahead of hitters. Last year, or actually over the course of his career, he had a 50% zone rate. This year, up to 60%. So he went from below average to one of the top starting pitchers in all baseball in hitting the strike zone. You combine that with the stuff that he has, and it should be no surprise he's getting the results that he is. That's Hunter Green I'm talking about here, who is my SP1 on the day. Probably not going to many Atlanta bats. Matt Olson, I think, is a decent play. Austin Riley up there on the report as well. But what about you, Stats? What do you see here? Braves and Reds.
Yeah, like you said, it's funny what happens when you've got good stuff and you throw strikes. So
yeah, good recipe there.
It's a great recipe. So when these guys throw more strikes, fewer pitches, let them put the ball in play, let your stuff do the work. And you're right, Green's doing that. So I've got him projected. He's my number one pitcher on the slate. And when you look at, throwing more strikes, he's right now kind of projected. He's middle of the pack for this slate as far as walks per innings pitch, but he's the number one pitcher as far as Ks per innings pitch here. And what we're looking at as far as giving up runs. So he projects out to me as the best pitcher even at the price 9,800. I've got him above Sanchez. They're close. But I really like Green here tonight quite a bit. I think you said it right. If you are going to take any Atlanta bats, you name the only two bats that I'd be looking at, and that's Riley and Olson. I think if when you look at the Atlanta side, I've got Holmes. It's like we're doing too many shows together, because I agree with you on Holmes here. I think Holmes is where the market is going to get it wrong. I think they're going to be too high on Holmes. We want to get under the market. I've got him as the sixth best option. There's only 14 pitchers on the slate, so he's kind of right in the middle here. I think at the 7,400 price tag, again, for the same reason Sanchez will get higher ownership, because we've got some high salaried bats and high salaried stacks that are out there. People are going to be kind of pushing, to get some of these cheaper pitchers in there. Holmes would be the second best or the second choice of those cheaper pitchers. Does have upside. He's going to get, decent K numbers here. When we look at I've got the betting markets. He's 5.5 Ks. It's juiced to the over, so not terrible there. Actually, very good. 16.5 as far as the outs. When you look at Hunter Green, he's got the highest strikeout total on the slate of 6.5 juiced to the over, 18.5 juiced to the under on outs. I think he's got the highest out total as well. So yeah, I like this game certainly from Green standpoint. I'm going to have Holmes in the mix, but I will be under the market. I think I'm going to probably want to get closer to the 10% mark on Holmes. Bats, I don't have a lot of interest. Like I said, I mentioned the Riley and Olson. If you want to play maybe one or two Braves in a lineup. But then I do have interest in, I'm going to probably get over the market, even though the boom report isn't huge. It's not crazy on Cincinnati, but I do want to get some of these. I want to get the Dela Cruz. I want to get McLean in there. I want to get Steer. And, a few of those guys in my secondary stack. So I might get over the market. They're not going to be very highly owned. I might get over the market just on some single pieces and secondary stacks with the Cincinnati, just to maybe get a little bit more leverage over Holmes, which I think he might be, 20-25% owned tonight.
Yeah, and I don't think Ellie De La Cruz is quite the same as his namesake O'Neal Cruz in terms of, awesome play, but nobody else to play on the team. But he's close. He's not far behind, where he is clearly the top option almost on a nightly basis for the Reds. I think if you're playing them, you do want Ellie. But even if you're not on Holmes, if you can afford to get Ellie De La Cruz in your lineup, I think he's one of the best plays. Obviously, just massive upside. Get some leverage against a popular pitcher. I don't think he'll be that highly owned given the salary. So Ellie De La Cruz certainly on my short list. We're both on Green as the top dog today. You fitting in any Braves bats into your non-green lineups?
Yeah, probably not. But like I said, I might have when I run the 150, we may get a couple of. I'm not gonna rule them out. So I might have a handful of like Rileys and Olsons, but that's about it.
Yeah. If you look at the box score, Holmes looked like he's much better than Sanchez. Well, thankfully, Joe A, we don't have to make lineups only based on the box score results. That would be an interesting game, bring DFS back 15 years. And I will say with Holmes, the recency bias in DFS, I think, is kind of mostly gone at this point. It's mostly a projection-driven game for most people that play. But I do think after seeing Smith-Shawver and Sale deal with this team, and you get the discount on Grant Holmes, whose box score results look pretty good, I think a lot of people are saying, why not? Why not go 3 for 3 with Grant Holmes here? So could be contributing to some of his ownership on Grant Holmes. I'll be off of Grant Holmes myself. Sounds like you'll be under the field as well, Stats. Let's get to the Baltimore Orioles and my Minnesota Twins. I can claim this Twins team for at least one day. They were my top stack yesterday, and for the first time in my life, the Twins did come through for me. So you love to see that. Another good spot for them here against Charlie Morton, who is very old, well past his prime, has an ERA over 9, was moved to the bullpen, and then the Orioles just ran out of pitchers. So they say, Morton, sorry, you're back in the rotation. You gotta start tonight against the Twins. I don't love how this lineup profiles against a righty nearly as well as a lefty for now. Part of the reason I love the Twins, all those lefty mashers like Correa and Buxton, France, Jeffers. But nevertheless, I got to have interest going up against Charlie Morton, who just hasn't had it so far this year. Hard to imagine, that he's going to kind of rediscover the fountain of youth. Never know in one baseball game, but I do want to get back on the Twins here. There are some fairly strong winds blowing in, but it doesn't look like it'll have a huge effect on the run environment, at least according to our friends over at Ballpark Pal. So I'm in on the Twins, not as enthusiastically as I was yesterday, but still in. And then the Orioles, we've talked about a little bit, some pretty fun bats at the top of their lineup against Simeon, Woods, Richardson, who really isn't any good. Mullins, Gunnar Henderson clearly lead the way for this Orioles team. But yeah, Rushman, O'Hearn, Jackson Holliday swinging a much better bat. Heston Kierstead, one of those players that you might not expect to show up on that report, is showing up pretty high on the Boom report. So the Orioles look pretty interesting to me here. I'm expecting runs in this game. Stats, what do you got for us? Twins and Orioles at Target Field.
Yeah, I think runs definitely are to be expected. I've got these as 2 of the 3 worst pitchers on the entire slate, with Morton being the worst pitcher I've got rated here. So I'm going to be passing on the pitching. And you would think you'd want to get, if you have 2 pitchers that you don't necessarily like, you would think you'd be pretty heavily stacked on the bats. But, I think you kind of said it there. I don't love this Minnesota lineup, and I don't necessarily love the matchups here tonight for them. I do like the Baltimore side better. Minnesota, yes, I was with you on them last night. We don't typically, there's not a lot of times that you want the Minnesota stack, but last night I thought was a pretty good opportunity, and it worked out fairly well for us. But I think these Baltimore bats are definitely live here today, and in particular the one that the Kierstead that you said at 3,300. I know he's batting at the bottom of the lineup, but fairly decent. He's got like a 15% chance here to hit a home run. Slight chance here for a stolen base, but not totally out of the question to get us one there. So if we get a home run out of, for 3,300, bottom of that lineup, and that lineup goes off, I think we've got some potential here with the Baltimore bats, to me more so than Minnesota. So that's where I'm leaning here is Baltimore. I like the wraparounds here, get the top of the lineup with that cheaper bat in the 8-hole. That's kind of how I like this game.
I started off on the Twins kind of throughout my morning research, but I think I'm coming around with you on preferring Baltimore. Really, the Twin stack is it's only a bet against Morton, right? Like the individual matchups and even the righty versus righty, the trying to hit a home run out to left with the wind blowing in. None of that looks really good. It's just Morton has been so bad that the Twins are in play. But, it's not the same as yesterday where the Twins looked like they were just going to tattoo the ball. Not really expecting that, but Morton just gives up so many base runners that I do think you got to at least consider this Twin stack, and they're relatively cheap too. So I still do like them a little bit. But yeah, that Baltimore stack, they do feel like the higher upside play with some of the guys, some of those lefties that we've talked about. And yeah, the wraparound stack does look pretty good for the Baltimore Orioles tonight. Trevor Larnach, I do think, is the top play on the Twins, followed by Buxton, and then even Royce Lewis. They've got him all the way down in the 7th hole. So not that many appealing individual bats, I don't think, on the Twins, which obviously makes the stack overall a little bit less appealing. Let's keep it moving to the White Sox and the Royals. This one in Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. Jonathan Cannon going for the White Sox. Not a big strikeout arm, but hasn't been too bad this year. And I don't think the Royals are chalk tonight for one of the first times in what feels like weeks with this team. They'll get some ownership for sure. It seems like they always do, but maybe people laying off it a little bit here. Perhaps the game of Coors has something to do with that. But yeah, I do think you could play the Royals against Cannon, and of course that horrible White Sox bullpen. Cannon himself, not really in play for me on this slate. And then Michael Wacha going for Kansas City. Kind of have the same attitude toward him as I did toward Lugo yesterday, where I do expect him to pitch fine and, score 15 or so fantasy points, but I just don't know how much upside there is for Wacha. It's hard not to compare him to Lugo, right? Two just kind of decent but low strikeout right-handed arms pitching back-to-back for the Royals. So I'll be honest, stats I'm mostly off this game. I think maybe my lowest owned game overall on the slate. See you nodding. Sounds like you might agree with me on White Sox and Royals not being the most exciting of games for DFS purposes.
I do agree with you. I'm looking over Saber and looking at some of these ownerships, and it looks high to me. I mean, the Kansas City
people back on the Royals. Oh yeah, they are. Yep.
they're back on KC, man. And I can't, I get it because they're so cheap. I mean, you've got, Biggio batting 5th at 2,300 and Vinny P at 3,300 batting 3rd. I get it, but you got Massey at 24. They're so cheap, the bats here, that maybe that's going to inflate the ownership. But if they're anywhere remotely if they're going to get half this line, you're going to get, all right, Bobby Witt is Bobby Witt. But if we're going to get these guys at, 15 to 20%, man, that's a fade all day. I think we might have been in the same situation last week where we were like, you got to fade KC. That worked out really well. I think we're in the same boat here tonight. There's just way better stacks. You got to pay up for them. I get it. But I think we've got enough value at pitching tonight as well to make it work. So I don't like this game at all. When are we ever touching the White Sox? I don't know. But I think this is a great, just a great situation to fade if KC is going to be chalky, and I think we'll benefit from it. But as far as Wacha goes, I've got Wacha as like the 4th best option here tonight. But I agree with you. You have to look at it with a lot of caution. He is not. There's very limited upside with Wacha because he's not going to get you the strikeouts, right? So he should, you're projecting him to not going to walk a lot of guys, not going to give up a lot of runs here tonight, but he's also not going to strike anyone out. So if he goes 6 innings, get you 3 or 4 strikeouts. Is it enough? It could be, maybe, depending on what everyone else does. But at 8,200, is he better than Sanchez? Probably not even better than Holmes, even though I do have him rated above Holmes. So for GPPs, I don't really love Wacha, even though he rates out 4th. I'll get a mix of it because you kind of have to always play these pitchers against the White Sox. But I will like him a lot less than probably the market does.
The low strikeout rate pitchers like a Wacha, they just have so little margin for error, right? It can happen to any pitcher where you walk a batter, you give up a bloop single, you get a hit by pitch, and then it's just one swing of the bat, you give up 2 or 3 runs if you don't have the strikeout stuff to make up for it, right? So you're just threading a fine needle with Wacha, where even if things go his way, the upside's not high. in one bag inning essentially will sink his fantasy score. So, it's not that likely to happen against the White Sox, but it happens all the time to better pitchers than Waka, even in good matchups. So I do try to avoid pitchers like Waka in general, especially when they're priced up, right? I have no problem going there if they're 5,200 or something like that, and they get you the big bats, but not really a price discount, I don't think, from where Waka should be. And like Lugo yesterday, this is the highest price tag of the season for Waka so far. Not sure what Lugo ended up with yesterday. I don't think it was a great score, and certainly the pitchers we were on did well. So I don't think Lugo ended up being a good play, and kind of think the same thing might happen to Michael Waka tonight. Let's go to the last two games of this slate. We go to Coors Field first. I think this is an interesting one. They did get rained out yesterday. Still kind of cold and dreary, but they are going to play this game, almost certainly drying out here in Colorado after a couple of days of rain. Won't play like a typical Coors game, right? But still going to be, I think, along with Yankee Stadium, the best, and Tampa, among the best hitting parks, of course, on the slate. But we do have two, if you take Coors Field out of the equation, two pretty bad offenses. Let's be honest. I know the Tigers have, they've got some talent there. Kerry Carpenter and Torkelson and Riley Green can all do some damage. But overall, this is a lineup to target against with opposing starting pitchers. And in the Rockies, just enormous strikeout rates up and down the lineup, even in Coors Field. We've seen plenty of opposing pitchers go into Coors Field and put up big scores. Looks like the Tigers will come in as the highest owned stack. Is that what you're seeing as well, stats? I think that's true.
Yeah.
Close to it anyway. Tigers are going to be up there, no question about it. But I get to the pitchers here now, stats. And I'm guessing you're not going to have a ton of interest in these two guys, but I guess that'll leave it to me to make the case, which I'll do in a second. But why don't you talk about the bats in this game, and then I'll talk about Jackson Jobe and Dollander, who I both think are pretty good plays tonight.
Yeah, dude. You're kind of rubbing off on me, but I think Dollander's actually in play here tonight against Detroit at 4.5 Ks, heavy juice to the over. 14.5.
Massive leverage. He's cheap.
I think he's in play. I love the leverage play, and I like getting off of Detroit bats here a little bit tonight. If I'm playing again, I always play 150, so I'm going to have plenty of Detroit bats, but I don't think I'll be over. I know I won't be over the market. Just kind of looking at it without looking at all the numbers. If I see the ownership projections that I see on such a short slate on Saber for a Coors game with Detroit, it looks low. Like my instincts are typically just kind of pound this game and hope for the best. But when I'm analyzing the numbers, and I'm going to rerun it, so for those, if you're just watching the show, you may miss out. For those of you who are RPS subscribers, I'll have everything rerun here in once we get off the show. But so that may change a little bit. But what I'm looking at, certainly on the Boom Report, is the ownership levels for Detroit just don't warrant what, even though they look kind of low for a slate like this, they don't actually warrant what the projections are showing. So I think we could get. I like Dollander. You may like Joe better. I don't know, but
I like Dollander better too.
I like Dollander better too as well. I think the upside's there. Good, he could get strikeouts, and that's what we're always looking for. So good Ks. Obviously, it's Coors. Can we give up a bunch of runs here? We can, but it's 6,500. I love the leverage play. I didn't look it can't be very high as far as ownership. It's got to be 1%. Man, you get yourself 6, 7, 8% Dollander. Get under the market on the Detroit bats, and shift all that, shift what you were going to be playing on Detroit over to the Yankees, and I think you're in a really good position. Obviously, it's got to pan out, but I love that. I love the leverage there.
Yeah, I think math-wise, it makes a lot of sense to play Dollander. Our friends at Saber have him projected at 1 to 2% owned. They usually come in a little bit higher than that, but it won't be a ton. It'll probably be under 5% for Dollander. And just talking a little bit about him because he is a rookie pitcher. I'm sure a lot of people, and you look at the stats, they're ugly. 6.5 ERA, a whip of 1.5. So, I mean, there's no question, right? This could go very south very quickly for Dollander in Coors Field. I don't think that's the argument that he's a safe play. The argument is he a good GPP play? And I think clearly the answer is yes, given the ownership, given the leverage, and also given Dollander's talent level is very, very high. I mean, he's going to be, out there throwing 98. He can go deep into games. He's a top prospect. And he and Jackson Jobe, I'll talk about Jobe here in a second, they do have, like, the one thing you can, if you're going to, thrive in Coors Field, put up a big outing, the one thing you almost always need is a big fastball that you can throw past hitters where, the thin air makes breaking balls not break as much and you don't get as much swings and misses. But if you can get your fastball, you can get your four-seamer above the bats, then you can be good to go. And Dollander can do it. He can get strikeouts here. I'm not, again, risky, but I won't be surprised if Dollander strikes out 7, 8, 9 Tigers in this one. If he does, I think he's got a really good chance of being on the winner. And there's no question in my mind he's got a better chance than his ownership would suggest of being on the winner, especially when you factor in he doesn't even have to do that good at that price point, right? He could put up 8 to 10 fantasy points and still get there on a shorter slate if the big bats that you can get that you can afford end up doing a lot of damage. So I'm in on Dollander. Yeah, I mean, again, risky play. Uncle T sees it. Jackson Jobe is actually kind of, in a lot of ways, similar to Dollander. A really, really talented young pitcher. Awesome stuff. Top prospect, or one of them in the Tigers organization. The strikeouts, even at the minor league level, have not coincided with what you would expect from the level of talent that Jobe has, but the talent is undeniable with Jobe. He's got an electric fastball, and he faces a good slider too, and he faces this Rockies team, right-handed heavy, tons of swings and misses, tons of strikeouts, and they'll let Jobe go if he's pitching well. They've let him throw into the upper 80s a couple times. I'd expect about 85 pitches from him. Again, not a safe play. I think both these guys have upside. Coors Field not going to play like it typically does tonight. And I'll have a decent amount of exposure to both these guys. I do think Dollander the slightly better play, but I'm in on Jobe as well. Looks like the market kind of disagrees with us a little bit and has Jobe as the higher owned of the two, which I do get going up against the Rockies, but you and I both prefer Dollander, especially with that little bit of ownership discount. Final thoughts on Coors Field? I mean, I'll probably have a Tigers stack in there. Are you stacking the Rockies? They're so hard to stack. It's just like a blind faith move, right? Against
I do want to play some Rockies. Obviously the Tigers here, but I agree. I think the market has it kind of inverted to what we're looking at. And look, these are the type of plays. I mean, I expect to, like, if I didn't watch the games tonight, do I expect to wake up tomorrow morning and see 35 out of Dollander? No, but these are the plays where if he gets blown up, it gets blown up, but we're trying to win GPPs, which is the whole reason. Like, you guys are watching these shows, you're subscribing to RPS to get info that is helping some of the best players in DFS win. Doesn't win every night. Like, I wish I had the formula to win on a nightly basis. Nice. Sometimes you got to play these type of plays here that go against the market. We could all get up here and tell you, hey, it's a Coors game. Just play, shove the Coors game, do the, whatever it is. And, on a percentage basis, we're going to be more right than not. But that doesn't pay the bills. Like, finding the opportunities where we can get a little bit of leverage, where there's you who watch a lot of these pitchers and know all about their stuff, and I'm looking at the number side of it. When that kind of coincides, I love that. So is it a lock, that Dollander is going to be the guy in the nuts tonight? No, and I don't expect him to be. But we've got to make these educated, sharp plays over and over and over again, and over time, it leads to profit.
Yeah, and when low on pitcher, Liberatore last night comes through with a big game, I'm not banging my chest too much, because the next day it could be the opposite, right? I'm on the Dolander train and it goes completely against you. So
I had him in the core yesterday.
yeah. So
So
you just win or lose, right or wrong. You got to try to make the best plays you can on the slate that you're given, and at least for us, Dolander does look like a pretty good tournament play tonight. Let's get to the last game of the slate. Toronto Blue Jays, LA Angels. This one in Los Angeles. Typical weather here, 65 degrees, some winds blowing out. Two veterans, Yusei Kikuchi throwing for the Angels. He is a former Blue Jay, but throwing for the Angels tonight against the Blue Jays. And then Jose Barrios, veteran right-handed arm, going up against this Angels team. I kind of view this game a little bit like the White Sox Royals game, in that I don't have a ton of interest. I don't think I can play Kikuchi against this contact heavy Blue Jays team. He's just too risky, and then you probably remove the strikeout upside, and I don't get a lot of appeal with Kikuchi. I guess a little more interest in Barrios, but he's not an $8,500 pitcher anymore, and I just think he's a little bit overpriced. Does get a lot of right-handed bats here, so I think there's a decent chance Barrios pitches well, but I'm not really on these guys. More interest in the offenses, but these are kind of – the Angels have upside, but I don't love the right versus right matchup. And then the Blue Jays are kind of a low upside team in general. Santander looks pretty good. I guess the top of the lineup for the Blue Jays looks pretty good against the lefty Kikuchi, but it's just hard for me to get excited about the Blue Jays in general. What do you do in stats with Blue Jays and Angels here?
Yeah, so Barrios and Kikuchi have got 7th and 9th respectively on my sheet tonight. I really similar. I mean, the prices that we've got $900 gap in the prices, but my expectation on these guys are pretty similar as far as their K numbers and across the board, all the important metrics that I look at. When you look at the betting market, they're pretty close, even though it's a 5.5 K prop for Barrios. It's heavily juiced to the under as opposed to the 4.5 number for Kikuchi. 17.5 heavily juiced to the over for Barrios as far as his out. So that's a positive there, but I don't have a ton of interest in either one of these guys. We talk about the Toronto bats as well. It's always tough to kind of stack Toronto, but I think we're getting bargains on Santander on a night in, night out basis. I mean, at 3,900, I think he's definitely an option that you may want to fit him in as a single play if you've got some more expensive stacks and you're looking for not a cheap option, but certainly not an overly expensive one in Santander. The other guy I like to do that with is Nato on the Angel side. So I do like some of the Angel stacks a little bit better. We're playing a lot more Angel stacks than I really anticipated coming into the year. But I don't mind the Angels at all, because we're getting, with Ward at 3,300 and Soler, I think those prices warrant it. Now, I don't know if the lineups have come out and any of those guys, if I'm now mentioning guys who aren't in, but yeah, if I mention someone who's actually not in there now, that's because I had it up, before these lineups may have come out. But yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, Ward, Soler. We've got, you've got some cheap options. So I don't mind actually taking the Angels. I actually like it as secondary stacks tonight. If you're going to pair them up with some of the more expensive stacks. If you got a Detroit stack, I think the Angels work out nicely with them. Same thing with the Yankees, as far as maybe getting a little salary saving with some decent home run potential and, dare I say, boom potential on this slate. So I like some of these bats for the Angels more so than the Toronto bats. But I think both teams can be used as secondary stacks more than maybe primary.
Yeah, I like that call with the secondary stacks on these teams. Angels with a lot of power, and certainly the Blue Jays, some power and also capable of stringing together some base hits and getting there as a secondary stack. So I like that call. We got Boynton in here. Yeah, Dolander. I mean, it's a few games, and when you're chasing a super low-owned, cheap pitcher, it's can they get strikeouts, right? And if they can, I think listen, I'll take the risk that he gives up some home runs. That's kind of almost the expectation, but I do think the strikeout upside is at least plausible for those Colorado pitchers. Dong draft time stats. We ran through all the games. 3 rounds, 1.5 points if the player is $3,500 on DraftKings or less. I'm ready to pick, but you're up first if you are ready. If you got to pick for us.
All right. I like to get the I'm just going to go all 3,500 or less. How about that? That's my general rule in this
Hope you
game.
don't take
So
mine
I'll
right off the bat.
I'm going to take Soler right off the bat.
All right, Soler. Well, since I know you're living down there, I better take my cheap guys early so you don't steal them from me. I like what I've seen from Jackson Holiday recently. He's exactly 3,500 as well, so I'll go with him. And he kind of got me in on the Orioles. I'll go with the little mini Orioles stack there and go with his teammate Ryan Mountcastle. Hasn't done much this year, but does have some power. Also 3,500, 5 and 6 in the lineup for Holiday and Mountcastle. You're up, Stats.
All right, I'm giving you more value. I'm going to go with Ward down here, and then I thought you were going to take my guy for Baltimore, Kierstead.
Yeah, there we go.
So I'm living 35. I play this game. I'm playing it for the 1.5 X. So
that's right. And I feel like we need to just like outlaw Aaron Judge from this,
I almost don't take him because it's too easy. It's like he's going to hit a home run every other day. So
you are deservedly mocked if you take Aaron Judge.
Exactly.
But you know what? We've got 4 Orioles on here, or 3 Orioles. I'll make it a 4th. This team kind of growing on me, and go with Gunnar Henderson, who's hit the ball hard, not with a ton of results so far. Love the matchup for Henderson. Could also go. I'll go Henderson officially, but could also go as his teammate Cedric Mullins in the 1 hole. That's the Dong draft. Let's do recap pitching here quickly. I think we're mostly on the same guys. Who's your favorite pitching combination on DraftKings tonight, Sets?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be. I mean it's fairly chalky here, but it'll be Green Sanchez. I think that's the best combo with. Hey, let's call it Dollander. Will be the a bit of a leverage play here tonight.
Yeah, some sites you don't need to overcomplicate it, and to me, Sanchez and Green. I mean, if you're playing single entry, maybe get different with the bats or something. But I think those 2 guys are, to me, clearly the best 2 guys on this slate. So I'll let other people, mess around with the Freeze and the Shane Bazas. Give me Hunter Green and Sanchez as my top 2, and then my other 2 guys, just a 4 pitcher slate for me. And it's the 2 Coors Field guys, Jackson Jobe and Chase Dollander. Hopefully I'll, come to my senses and play mostly Sanchez and Green, but I'm definitely mixing in Jobe and Dollander as well. Finally, give me your top 2 stats, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Yankees tonight. I think that's going to be I think we win it with the Yankees. Look, Detroit, obviously, but I want to stick with just the. I'm gonna make a 1 stat call. I'm gonna say the Yankees win it for us here tonight.
All right, I love the Yankees as well, but I'll throw the Orioles in the mix. Seems like we both like several bats from the Orioles as well, coming off the Twins a little bit as we get closer to lock here. That'll do it for this show. Appreciate everybody watching as always. I'll be here same time, same place tomorrow with Mr. JT Hayes. Good luck to everybody in your contests tonight. Until tomorrow, he is Stats. I'm DC. We're out of here.